Welcome back, Giants fans. Today we're going to talk about the secondary. We're going to talk about what the Giants could potentially do in 2019 free agency to address some of the holes that have presented themselves. And of course, going into 2018, starting at one of the cornerback spots was Eli Apple. Eli Apple was, of course, later traded to the New Orleans Saints after being, for lack of a better word, a cancer for the New York Giants, both on and off the field. He was a complete bust out of Ohio State. Maybe he'll improve himself later in his career. He did definitely play better for the New Orleans Saints, and I think a lot of that may have to do with the Saints had a better pass rush. Of course, when you have a better pass rush, it makes the corners look a lot better than what they really are, and we saw that in the Super Bowl season. The Giants didn't have world beaters at the cornerback positions. Aaron Ross was okay. R.W. McCorders was nothing to brag about, but because of the pass rush, they had to cover for a shorter period of time, and whenever you have to do that, you're going to look a hell of a lot better. So I think a big thing that the Giants could do to help this secondary would be to acquire a stud pass rusher via the draft or via free agency. But they certainly could use some help in the secondary. I mean, for God's sakes, Webb was starting at corner. Sam Beal, though, of course, is coming back this year. Hopefully he suffered an injury. The Giants used a third-round pick on him last year in the supplemental draft, so they must see some talent in this kid. And as far as the other corner spot goes, Joyner Jenkins still remains one of the highest corners in the league, and to be quite frank, he really doesn't deserve that money at this point in his career. He did play great in 2016 when they first acquired him, but last year he was mediocre at best. In that Eagle game, he got burned for 2 long touchdowns. He got killed for the first play of the game, I think it was, against the Cowboys early in the year when Tavon Austin beat him deep. Jenkins is mediocre, but my problem with cutting Jenkins is his cap hit. He carries a $7 million cap hit, and that is why I think the Giants will hang on to him. Because when you look at the free agency class, the corners this year, it is very weak, and we will get into that. And I don't think it's worth using that dead cap hit on Joyner Jenkins. I don't think you're going to find a better corner for the difference in salary. So I expect Jenkins to be back. Now at the safety position, as I said earlier, the Giants have a standout who projects to be one of the bigger names in this free agent class, the strong safety Landon Collins. Now, I fully expect the Giants to franchise tag him, but where I think the Giants can really address a need in free agency is at the free safety position. Curtis Riley may have been the worst free safety in all of football last year. He ranked last in the league at tackle efficiency. He was a complete disgrace, and that is where I think the Giants could use some help if they make a move in free agency at the safety position. Now, of course, they could address it in the draft, but there are some big free agents in the safety class. It may be the deepest position of all the positions in this year's free agency. Now, when you look at the cornerback position, I don't expect the Giants to do much this year, not because they don't need it. They definitely don't have the strongest corners in the league. Jenkins is probably about an average corner, but as I said earlier, I don't expect them to cut him. Now, on the other side, you're going to have inexperience. I think Beal going into the year on this roster currently would be the other starting corner. He's never played an NFL game. Last year, of course, he had an injury. But I do think the Giants have a lot of confidence in this kid. They traded Apple because I think they think Beal's going to be a starter. As I said earlier, they projected him to be a third-round. They wasted a third-round pick, I should say, in the supplemental draft, and he was projected as a first-round draft pick. So I right now expect Beal to be the starter. Now, if they did go into free agency, I'll go down some of the names. Of course, you have Ronald Darby, who is probably the cream of the crop in this year's class. It's a thin class. Darby's a good cornerback, there's no doubt about it, but he's projected to make $13 million a year, which would put him amongst the highest paid corners in the league. And it really is not money that the Giants could spend at the position. They have too many holes, and they don't have enough money to spend. I think they're going to address the majority of their money on the offensive line and potentially a pass rusher in free agency. So I don't expect them to go after Darby. Another guy on the list is Darqueze Dennard, who is a talented cornerback. He's probably going to make in the $7 to $8, maybe $9 million range. But he hasn't been able to stay on the field. The guy hasn't played more than 12 games in a season throughout his career since the 2014 year. And Bryce Callahan's the same story. He projects to make about $7 million, but what I worry about him is he hasn't stayed on the field either. He's only played, he hasn't played more than 13 games, and he's coming from the Chicago Bears, who had a very good defense. So it's hard to project how he would play on the New York Giants. Now, there's some veterans in the class as well. You have Kareem Jackson. You also have Jason McCourty, but those guys, you're going to pay premium bucks for guys that are in their 30s. I don't think it's a wise decision. So at the cornerback position, really for the New York Giants, I'm staying away. It's a hard pass. I'm staying with what I got, and I may address it in the draft. I may spend a 3rd, 4th round draft pick on some corners that I project to be potential starters to supplant Jenkins in the future. I do expect them to cut Jenkins in the following year when he only carries a $3.5 million pay cut. Now, as far as the safety position goes, this is where I think if the Giants are going to spend money in the secondary and free agency, this is where they could potentially do it. The strong safety position, I think, will be Landon Collins. He is a free agent, but as I said earlier, I expect him to be back on the franchise tag for about $11 million. The free safety spot is a big issue. Curtis Riley is trash. He was the worst tackling safety in the sport, as I said earlier. Now, of course, you have Michael Thomas as well, but I don't view either one of these guys as a safety, as a starting safety for a good NFL team, and I don't want either one of them to be in the starting lineup. The safety class this year is very strong. As I said earlier, it's amongst one of the strongest positions in this year's free agency class, and it starts with Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas is going to be a Hall of Famer. The problem with Thomas, he, I think, is going to make Eric Berry money. Eric Berry is the highest paid safety in the sport. He's making just over $13 million a year, and I think Earl Thomas is going to make around that, and he's 30 years old. Earl Thomas is a freak. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, and he is probably was the best player on that Seattle defense when they were at their prime. I think he's going to make a ton of money, and that is why if I'm the Giants, I stay away. Again, they don't have that money to spend. He would be perfect, though. He's a great center fielder. You would stick him in at that free safety spot, and he would instantly make this Giants secondary night and day. They'd be much better. But they don't have the money to spend. That's the problem. The next safety up is the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann, of course, last year bet on himself. He took a 1-year prove-it contract, and he proved to still be an effective safety. He had a great year, and he's going to get paid because of it. I wouldn't take him simply because he's very similar to Landon Collins. He's not known for his coverage. He's more of a big play safety. I don't think he fits the Giants. It's not what they need. They need more of a coverage safety if they're going to address the position in free agency. So I stay away from him. If the Giants are going to spend at the safety position, I see 2 potential names, and it's because of 3 reasons. It's because of age. They're both still on the right side of 30. They both have the skill set that the Giants need in terms of pass coverage. They're both known to be pretty good pass coverage safeties. And it's because they're more cost-effective than a guy like an Earl Thomas. They're still going to break the bank, but they're not going to cost you $13, $14 million a year. And those 2 names are Adrian Amos, formerly of the Chicago Bears. Now, of course, they could still retain Amos, but a lot of people think they're going to let him go. And the other name would be Lemarcus Joyner. Both these guys, I think, would cost between $8 and $10 million via free agency on a per-year basis. And I think they both fill in the need for a coverage safety. Adrian Amos is not like this spectacular player, but what he is consistent and reliable. From what people say, he's always in the right position. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he's a sure tackler, which is exactly what the New York Giants need. So if they were going to spend, this is one guy that I would look at. Like I said earlier, he's not going to break the bank, and he's going to do what you need. So I like Amos as a potential free agent acquisition. And then Joyner, as I said earlier, same thing. This guy is a sure tackler. He ranks 7th in that department at the safety position per PFF. And Sport Track estimates he's going to make about $10 million a year. So he's definitely going to cut into those funds. But he would be a huge upgrade at the safety position. So those are the 2 names that if I was the New York Giants that I would be looking at. Joyner and Amos. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Who would you want the Giants to spend money on if they were going to at the safety position? Would you spend money at the safety position, or would you give it a pass? As always, cheers.